One more minute, but good size crowd. Welcome everyone. This is the Blender Birds of a Feather. Please feel free and at ease. It's not exactly so-called, I talk and you guys just sit down there and listen. If you have anything to share and stuff like that, please go ahead, raise your hands. This is a highly interactive session, and one of the, like Dalai has mentioned just now, it's free for you to take any photos, videos that you like. Things over here are all under Creative Commons, so it's free to share. Okay, I know I'm going to have a few ugly notes up here. I'll try not to rely too much on my notes since I got problem having my dual screen thing working. Okay, my name is Victor Yap. I am a solution architect as well as a very recent software developer for anything open source. What I do most is that I help people migrate from proprietary systems to open source systems. I'm also an open source advocate for a lot of events that I attend to. But most of the time I'm doing a lot of Blender related talks, telling people how you move from, say, Photoshop to using GIMP instead of Illustrator, to use Inkscape, stuff like that. I'm going to show you what Blender can do. How many of you over here knew what Blender is? Okay, half of the room. Have any of you tried using Blender? 1/4 of the room. Okay, for those of you that doesn't know anything yet, I'm just going to show you what Blender is capable of and give you a kind of like an intro to how the entire Blender system functions. from the demo videos, how many of you can kind of see the potential of Blender right now? Half of the room still. Damn, I'm not doing my job. Okay, right. What Blender pretty much does is that it pretty much does everything. You start from modeling to texturing to rigging to animating. What you call it? After animating, you can do shading, compositing, video edits, everything. So one piece of software that does a lot of things. It's helping a lot of small and medium-sized companies. More small companies than medium-sized, but more and more medium-sized companies, as far as I know of, has beginning to take a look at it or has partial implementations of Blender in their workflow. Okay, so why choose Blender? There are people that ask, but it's really up to the nature of your job. Because one of the things as a solution architect for a few animation companies that I've discovered is that many of them actually are bound by outsourcing clients that demands using proprietary software. But if you're actually totally doing your own stuff, you actually don't really need to use all the other more expensive software, whereby this whatever Blender can provide actually provided. How do you say? The tool sets actually are a lot more efficient. Some may say that is relatively speaking, but for those people who have changed from, say, 3D Studio Max and Maya converted over to Blender, they can attest to that. And of course, I'll let Ton tell you more about why you can choose Blender or not to choose Blender.
The main benefit of Blender compared to commercial software is, of course, the price. That's what people say. Blender is free, not only free as a free software, but it's free as in gratis and no money. This is a good reason for people to be curious about it. But in the end, if they use Blender for a while, they understand that free software, open source software, means a lot more. If you compare something like Maya or Max with Blender, I think Maya or Max offer you lots of really advanced, high quality technology, but because it's closed, it's not your stuff. So you can press some buttons, and if you are lucky, it will do what you want it to do, but because it's closed, you're always shut away from the actual technology. And Blender, it is your stuff. If it doesn't work, you can fix it. Or you can ask somebody to help fixing it. Or you can help improving it. So the control over your own technology is for many people more important than the quality of the technology. I think that's the same thing as why you guys are making your own camera system. Because it's the fact that your camera is probably more important for you than the fact that you have a really good camera. Of course, you want to have both. But if you buy a camera, now what? If you are lucky, it's a really good system, and you press the buttons, and you might get out of it what Sony wants you to do with the camera, but that might be not what you actually want. That's why Blender is definitely much better than any other of the competition, because of the openness, and not so much because of the free.
How many of you understood what he's trying to say? This is Ton. He's the developer and the lead of the Blender Foundations and the Blender Institute. It's because of him that we have Blender, and constantly Blender is constantly improving. How much are you guys paying for software right now? I mean, I usually don't like to focus too much on that, but think about it and think about the core set of tools that you are actually using. Okay. Now, whatever you are using right now. Okay. I can show you studios that has been using Blender, or some of them even use an entirely, completely free, open source software to create their content. Okay, open source and free usually kind of goes together, but not necessarily. I mean, Red Hat is selling open source software as well. It's Linux based. Okay, but you pay a service and support to them in order to for them to give you the necessary help when you need to. I'm going to now show you a few examples of studios and individuals that are using Blender in one form or another, or a combination of Blender plus some proprietary software to complete what they would like to do. This is from Australia. They're doing a TV series.
Nice fella and all, but I just can't stand a bloke who can't hold his horses. I told him to piss off and piss off quick sticks. That's one thing he can do, he can piss off quick, he fucking comes quick enough.
One, two, three.
Bill, that bloody idiot, you'll get it one day. I've told him 1,000 times, find somewhere else to play, you little retard.
Me? Mate, I'm happy as a pig in shit. Look at it. Great place, great people, a real Australia. I throw the leg over, but Christ almighty, I reckon I'd chew my arm off the next morning just not to wake her up.
This is from Red Cartel. They used to be called Promotion from Australia. They have been actually using Blender since quite a long time, 2004 onwards. And they actually helped, partially to create the the very, very alpha stage of Ocean Simulator. Blender itself also uses the Bullet engine. Actually, they're one of the first one to use the Bullet engine for their physics simulations, and they have a smoke simulations. The smoke simulation actually you see in Houdini since version 9 was actually implemented on Blender first. Then Houdini took the white paper that was, all these things are open and things like that. It's actually a pretty good set of math to create the smoke simulation. So when you look at the Blender smoke simulation and the Houdini smoke simulations, they are very, very similar. This is software. This is a video actually made for the Japanese company, but done in the US by Fuzz Animation Studio.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
I hope I haven't put anyone to sleep yet. Okay, this animation actually was put on YouTube, I think almost about a year ago, and I mean, content is still king no matter what tools you use, and it has actually generated 185 million views as of yesterday. Very impressive work. There's another one called, I think, the Little Snowflakes, which is just as impressive. But this is the one that really garners a lot of attention. And the interesting part with this is that the Japanese company actually just drew them a very basic storyboard, handed over to this guy in Texas, and he just do the rest of it and post it back to them, and the Japanese firm totally loved it. Look for fast animation. This is from Malaysia. You can see quite a bit of parody in here. Astro Boy meets Iron Man. Okay, this is by another Malaysian company that's doing games. They pretty much use Blender to create all the assets and using Ogre Game Engine to do the graphics.
We're gonna die, you know. Okay.
Thank you.
This one is actually done in India, and they are a full-fledged production company using, I think pretty much everything open source, including the operating system. This is another India company that specializes in visual architecture. This is actually using the Blender, what is it, Toon Edge rendering? Edge rendering. Real works. And bear in mind, this is done prior to the newer rendering engine that Blender is using right now. This is still using Blender internal. This coming up next is from China. It's from a guy called Ethan Luo. He's also the lead of Blender User Group China. Oh, yeah, and he wrote a Blender book for the Chinese community, and it's like alternate Blender simplification. All of his stuff is actually to do with games, so he himself got a game company. It's by the same person. It's a totally different style. Smoke fire simulations and stuff like that, fluid simulation is all built in inside Blender itself. So all the special effects that you're looking at, whatever that comes up, is all included in one package. Okay, next we are going to take a look at a portfolio of William. So he's right behind there, our camera person right there. He is one of the rare people that I know of that done all his entire portfolio, almost like 90% of it, using open source software, Blender especially, and got into Lucas Animation, or ILM. Which one is it? Disney.
ILM.
Tracking was done in syntax. In fact, when he was doing this, Blender doesn't really have a good enough camera tracking facilities. You can see all the 3D elements is all actually like that using Blender. This is also from Singapore, Simpan Chong. He has a studio called Studio Roller, and he specializes in industrial design. And he visualizes a lot of his industrial design stuff using Blender himself. Now, okay, Sim actually would have been, how do you say, he would have joined us today, but he actually flown over to China to teach a bunch of artists how to use Blender as well. So China is picking up, using Blender for the industrial visualization stuff. One of the things is because a lot of times things like Hypershot, Maxwell Renderer, they cost a lot, but when you compare it with open source, the quality is about the same. And the best thing is that you got the code, you get to tweak it. The best thing with open source is that you can actually program your entire pipeline all over it. Or, if there's something that scratches your itch, they say, you know what, I'd like to have this particular features implemented, but, with proprietary software, you don't have a choice but to wait for the next release or, back the hell out of the publishers, the software publishers, for the features that you want. But at least with open source, you get the code, and if you're not inclined to code, you can actually try to find someone to implement the features. Let me switch gear a little bit. One other thing with Blender, like I said, because Blender is open source, you can actually do different kinds of things to it. And one of the things that the Blender China guys have done is to create a Chinese interface. So you can literally take down the whole source code, put in the interface that locally the people in your vicinity can understand. So at least with this, they actually went into applying it for Google Summer of Code to get this thing into Blender. So it's just not Chinese, there's also a Japanese interface and several other different languages. Portuguese, there we go. This is a modeling done by a Malaysian called Tommy Wong. And this design actually won the Mixamo Space Battle competition and gotten him quite a lot of attention. And right now I think he's working somewhere in Soho, I think in England. This is actually about OpenMovie, but I'll show it to you anyway first. Tell you about OpenMovie a little bit later. Thing with OpenMovie, it's, how do you say, Ton Rosendahl pretty much says that, okay, we need something to make Blender relevant to the user, to the artists who are using it. So let's create an OpenMovie to make sure that Blender is a tool for the artists or for studios that would like to use Blender as part of their pipeline. So they created OpenMovies to implement features that it's relevant to a production house, small production house especially. And every single visual stuff that Blender Foundations use to create the OpenMovie are all using open source software. Right on top there you can see the special thanks to open source projects. You see the Bullets engine, you see GIMP, you see Python, Inkscape, Krita. Krita actually is a kind of like a Corel painter the functionality. Subversion, OpenEXR, so on and so forth. Even the operating system is used Linux operating system, Ubuntu mainly. Forget to do is to show you some training resources. Most of you, when you go out, you look at it and it's like, okay, great software, but where do I get training? Actually, I've reloaded. Sorry. Just let it run through. There are actually many different places you can get training from. Most of them actually are online. Blender Foundation itself do provide DVDs for training, and they have their own wiki and stuff like that for training. Oh, and by the way, right in front of me over here, I have 20 DVDs from the Blender Foundations to be given out for free to the participants here. Okay, so there'll be pop quiz later.
These are all also in a Creative Commons.
Yeah, the content inside here are Creative Commons, so feel free to share. slowly? No? Not at all?
Blend because they need
Oh, okay. Here we go. So you can see that's, quite a bit of, stuff there. Okay, that's my brother. Hey. Can you hear me? There's, the user manual. eShop hasn't loaded yet. Blender Cookie. This is a very famous online training website. And when they started, they actually have Blender, I think Blender 3ds, Blender Maya and stuff like for various different software. But Blender Cookie, I think, is the one that's making them a lot more, getting them a lot more business. Blender Guru right now is like, how do you say, a lot of, people look up to this guy when it comes to high quality Blender tutorials. One of the things is that most of his stuff is actually very photoreal. I'll give you an example. This is the Nature Academy, one of the, I think it's like several weeks of training, whereby it's online and you constantly go back and forth with him. And then you see how he actually attracts people to go to him for Blender training. Because the things that he created here, he'll teach you how to recreate it. He don't usually offer this like constantly. It's like once in a blue moon you see him showing it. Okay, next few videos I'm just going to show you what the Blender Foundation has done to help create the DVD training tutorials. This one in particular is called Blend and Paint, or Paint and Blend. Everything that this artist uses is all using open source. He used a lot of MindPaint, GIMP, and what's it called, Krita. The Krita development team actually got him in to help them improve their software. So when you buy DVDs from the Blender eShop, you're in actual fact supporting the future innovations in Blender. Blender GIMP Painter and Master. A lot of Blenders, common creative styles uses the try attributes. So even though you distribute, make sure that you credit it back. We do have blend and paint here. The next we have Blenderella. Teaches you how to model and rig. More rig. I don't know, I thought this week. These are actually very high quality productions. Be it whether it's an open movie or it's a trading DVD. So this is just strictly model. Next up, match, track, match, and blend. So if you're into visual effects, motion tracking stuff, this DVD will teach you how to do it. Venom Labs. Venom Lab 1 was actually one of the hot seller. So now they came up with Venom Lab 2 now. All these are all available at the Blender eShop. And of course I have a few limited copies here. Okay. And let's see. Any questions so far? No? Wow. Let me just show you a few more Blender training websites. We have Blender Newbies. And even our William back here does a lot of free training as well. And he uploads all his video tutorials up in his YouTube channels. He's also currently teaching at Unisim using Blender. So Unisim is using Blender to teach. So if any of you guys wanted some crash course lessons, maybe you can approach Unisim. And I'm going to show you a few websites here regarding about community and stuff. This is where most of the Blender artists hang out. So if you have Blender questions as you're doing stuff in Blender, you can come to blenderartist.org. most of the people actually picked up their skills here, even for like Blender Guru himself. He picked up a lot of tips here. Blender Nation is like our headquarters for anything Blender. And so it's like a tutorial on how to make sparks, spike mouse. And Blender Art Magazine, this is like a, I forget, is it bi-monthly, I think it's bi-monthly, right? They've gone for systems. Yeah. So inside this Blender Art Magazine, you can find a lot of articles. You know, depending, each month they have a different theme. So, and they showcase like different stuff on their gallery. Things that CG artists, mistakes that CG artists make, blending for everyday, compositing, direct, indirect, cycles, different kinds of workshops and what you do with it. Blender right now actually has, how do you say, officially now they have two rendering engines. One is the good old Blender internal, and the other one is a brand new called Cycles, whereby it helps to render photorealistic stuff, kind of like Maxwell Render. And besides that, Blender itself also has internally a Blender game engine. So for people who does interactivity stuff, they can actually fully utilize the Blender game engines for it. Dalai Felinto here will dig in more with the interactivity side of Blender. Right. Any questions? People, come on. Nothing? Really? Yes.
I know there's another render for Blender, that's called like Freestyle, the one where it gives it sort of like edge render. Is that going into the trunk anytime soon?
Yeah, the thing with Freestyle is that there's been a lot of push for it, but Ton, at the meantime, I think he has his own plan of when he wants to put it in. Yeah, so it's not exactly a definite timeline for that, but
also it's being reviewed, so the branch is still actively maintained. I don't know if you follow the BF committers mailing list.
Yeah.
So like Brecht, pretty much, Brecht is one of the main Blender developers. Went over this whole thing. I think there's still Tom himself still wants to have these self-organized projects to be able to be maintained and eventually merged. But I don't see anywhere in the near future that comes in anywhere before 2.8, I think even.
yeah, like I said, there's a lot of push. There's even a kind of like a website specially dedicated to put freestyle, being part of Blender. But like I say, it's more like a side projects for people who are interested in doing it. Really? Okay, I guess we really got to do a hot quiz now. Okay, I'll introduce you to Dalai Felinto. He's going to talk to you about augmented reality and some of the project that he does with Blender.
The augmented reality theory here.
Oh, we don't have that? You can talk about it.
Hello everyone. My name is Dalai Felinto. I'm Brazilian, quite far from home. And my computer is not on. Anyways, I actually came here for a poster, so we're all also invited to watch later. I think 1 o'clock we have another poster section. The poster is also using Blender as a main tool for to create a pipeline on panorama rendering. I might have. Let's see if I have some image here. That's from Siggraph. But anyway, just is not what I'm going to show here right now. Just a teaser, since I have the microphone. Okay, this is just a quick teaser. So that's actually the posters outside. It is pretty much a framework I've been building up with AutoZone on how to capture a panorama, how to use a Blender as a tool to assist the depth reconstruction of the scene. And with this, with the depth information, we have a branch of LuxRender, is an open source engine that allows you to do very realistic rendering. So this scene here, as you see on the left part, has been lit only from the original captured image. There's no extra light, there's no tweaking on the shadowing, no compositing. It's a one-pass rendering. And it's really nice because, as Victor was saying, the beauty of Blender is not being free, it's being open. So thanks for Blender to being open, we are able to change things on it, and as a scientist, able to expand it further for our research. I'm just not going to get on that, but I just quickly going to show this. And then we go to the Blender media. This is simply to show in the context of a Siggraph how to have a tool that's not only a visualization tool, but can also be used as a framework pretty much. How is that handy? So Blender not only can be extended by low-level coding, but all its functionality can be expanded through Python. So you can access all your commands through Python. You can parameterize creation of materials. So for this scene here, these spheres are artificial, so is the carpet. And just, this is really what industry's been doing. There's nothing new on that. You pretty much take a bunch of Brecht panoramas, like a lot of Brecht pictures with a fish eye, assemble that as a panoramas. This you can see a little bit the panorama matching the reconstructed scene. We also do something specific for our project, that's to sort the elements according to their role in the rendering. So they can, if you know that something is simply going to be like a background plate, we tell the renderer beforehand. So everything that's yellow here, you know it's not going to get any shadow, simply going to be used as a reflection reference. And here's actually the interface inside the LuxRender. So as Victor was saying, a lot of the times, you're not going to simply use a Blender on its own. One of the main advantages of Blender is that we really try to make it most interoperable software, to be able to interoperate with any kind of software whenever possible. So we're talking about games. I guess a lot of you have heard of Unity 3D for into games. And Blender to Unity, you don't even need to export. Unity takes the blend file as it is. If you change something in the blend file, the Unity hates. It's going to say, hey, you want to update your file, something else has changed. From the demo reel he showed first, some of the works were rendered with Octane, the great engine. It's not in Blender, but you can export to Octane. People have been doing with V-Ray a lot of work. People have been using with LuxRender even. Just jump to the results here. Of course, here our main goal was to render panorama as the final output. But as you can see, how the panorama allows you to take traditional, conventional displays. This limited first one. And just here almost to illustrate how the perspective is still current because we calibrated using Blender. Just more to highlight how flexible is the tool. If you actually want to know more about this, just walk by the poster and you can talk. This is just an example of the reflection, how the carpet and the floor, even though the carpet is fake and the floor was original, you can't tell from the reflection. You can't tell them apart. They blend in. And that's actually thanks to the depth. That's an of our approach. Okay, but I'm not here to talk about Blender. I'm here to talk about the Blender game engine. I actually work at UBC, University of British Columbia, in the Fisheries Center department. Actually, all these images you see here, this image over here, it's all, they're both part of a production we made there, with coral reefs and sharks, entirely made with Blender. But we also use Blender a lot as an interactive tool. So Blender is not the tool you're going to be using to create a AAA game. Not going to make the next Wii U hit on the Blender game engine. Yet, there's a huge niche in the market for people doing interactive visualization that are not games. So I want to show here a few of these examples. Let's start this one here. It's an old project. This is a project I did for Zanichelli, is an Italian publisher. And they're teaching about architecture elements on the classic Greek temples and architecture. And the idea is that after you read the book, you're able to download a model that you can look around. You can actually fly around if you want. And not only explore, but you can also click in the elements. And you have the name on this right side here. This is a cornice obliqua. I don't even know what that is in English. And you can also go the other way around. You click here in Crepidona. You can see a picture of the real object. You can go back to the other camera. You can see only a cross section of the temple. You can you actually can have a game inside of it. I said it's not a real game, but it's still educational games. So these are quiz. So which element is a peristalsis? You highlight here A, B, or C. This one I know is the B, the columns. Which is a Crepidona. And go on. This project was interesting because they were trying to use another engine for this. They couldn't make it work. I don't know if it was performance or they didn't have people to work with. So the main artist was actually very skilled Blender professional, and they called me in, and just put that together. Different project now. This is an art gallery project, also entirely in the Blender game engine. Again, it's not a game, but it's interactive. I'm developing this for the Nottingham Trent University. They have a dome. Who here knows what a dome is? Like a full dome? A field? Full dome is like a planetarium. Any place that's spherical that you can project something on it. So recently there's a trend on planetariums to turn their projectors into digital projectors. So now as a digital artist, we have new theaters to play with. Totally unexplored to the traditional media makers. That work I showed on Panorama was also aimed at planetariums. Anyways, they have a dome, and dome traditionally the input image is like these fish eyes. So let's look at them at first. So this is basically a walkthrough. My background is actually in architecture and urban planning. That was my major. And not to say that I can't live with all these, but it's so clear for me how important it is to be able to have these tools to easily explore a project before actually go down to building it. And everyone now is consuming games. Everyone knows about games. You're not introducing some novelty in terms of technology, but yet people are barely exploring these for, they call serious games. Training. In this case, you can go to the painting and press a key, and you have more information on it. But the nice thing about this project is that this is not a static gallery with the paintings on it. Oops. This is actually, you're able to build up the paintings as you go. So this, again, was an educational tool. They have this section with kids when they get together and do drawings, paintings. And once they're done, they scan all the projects, all the paintings, and they pretty much select one of the walls. Well, let's see this one here, for example. I can move, change the scale. I can move this over there. And I'm going to add a new image here. The pressure. Yeah. Pictures. I just added a new picture here. There's actually the poster of that. You just load any image from the computer, you add information here, name, poster, author, all design, and Dalai. And anything, pretty much. So it's a very ludic tool. You can click here and change all the images, and it's saved. I'm just trying to show that we're not talking about games in the strict sense. but about the possibilities of having an interactive tool that's so tightly integrated with the asset platform you're using. So Blender, you can use Blender to build assets, sets, textures, but also use to navigate the environment. I said that was for a DOM, but I also made a more conventional navigation. Just to show the image over there. There you go. This over there. And then just get close. And this is a two-main project. I'm working with artists in Brazil. That's information we introduced. And there's also 3D support, so for stereographic glasses. But I'm just... don't need to load it. You see the traditional anaglyph, but could also support real 3D projectors and all that. Okay, let's show another project. This one is a mix of rendered and real-time game video. So what you see playing here in the background is a video made with Blender. We actually built up a video player. This we built at UBC. So Mike Penn worked with me on this. Mike Penn is a well-known Blender artist. And we built for the Stockholm Resilience Center. So in the middle of the Baltic Sea, they have a scientific center where people go to learn more about issues on the Baltic Sea. And Baltic Sea is a really important sea for the whole Baltic region. So they wanted to be able to tell a bit of story of the problem over there. Here I think we're talking about the, I don't know because I don't speak the language, but I think it was about over-exploitation of oysters. So all the fish simulation here, again, this is video inside the Blender game engine, video made with Blender. But all the particle simulation, all the voids, it's all using the Blender built-in tools. Which they're not highly directable sometimes, to be fair, but they can do amazing things. It's a matter of having the time to play with. And this is a video player, you can just go to different parts of the video. One that I like a lot is this, the last one here. We actually have this one video. This video made out of 3 videos. So we have the 3 years showing the different data for this particular scenario. Scenario means we have a high influx of nutrients and a low control of the fish catching. And the idea of this visualization here is to be able to switch between environmental conditions and be able to compare them. So we just decided to have the same video with the same camera, and actually using Python a lot. Remember I said that Python can be used to expand Blender? In this case it's so handy because we need to quickly take one single Blend file and generate 9 outputs out of it. So we have this one particle simulation, and I say now show only 20% of the fish, but keep the same flow. Now take all the fish and change their size. See all the... Oh, I have my favorite ever Blender game engine project. Just going to show an image first, and then a video, and then explain quickly. The image didn't load up. Okay, there you go. So here, it's I was telling about dome. This is a 30-meter dome of diameter. It's a portable one, so we actually can be assembled. And all this visualization you see here, the rays coming from the top, this is running in real time with the Blender game engine. So we have 6 projectors, these Barco projectors, these really good ones. 2 computers onto this warping into this sphere, and have 1 computer only doing visualization in real time. So this project, quickly show the PDF here. Exactly. For a university in Nijmegen, in the Netherlands. Hold on. How to full screen? There you go. This is this is because of this slides. So the idea here was to combine real physics particle detectors So this is a muon detector. Muon is a subatomic particle that's invisible, but if you be able to detect a muon trajectory, you're able to trace back where the muon comes from. And the subatomic particles with the highest energy levels, they keep this original trajectory. So if you detect the subatomic particles with high energy level, you can trace back the protons. And they find out that originally they thought they would come from all over the place, but they come from very specific places, which they now believe are black holes. So what you see here, this you can say is a black hole detector, which is pretty awesome, but they're invisible. So how can people relate to these? So how can you bring science to the mass? That was the overall idea. I was also flickering to the image. And this was so the idea was to make a casual event. Forget about science for a little bit. Let's make a dancing event with these pretty girls and headsets. We could have a DJ. We had the whole event driven by the particles. So it's not game, but it's real time here. So all the lights for this LED table were lit up according to the heat of the particles. We have the table as well. And here we actually have two visual artists teams working on this. On the left is not Blender, is the work of Mehmet Akten, is a British guy. And then here on the right is a 3D game engine, the Blender game engine, been running in real time. 30-meter dome. That's the size of the dome. It's huge. These are other examples of domes. So the thing is, since the Blender is open, it's very convenient for researchers to test new technology on it. So what you see here, this is the iDome, is an immersive dome in Australia. The person sitting here is Professor Paul Burke. He's actually at Siggraph. He's the authority on immersive domes. And we were collaborating towards supporting his dome technology into the Blender game engine. So it's quite successful. You can see this is all the Blender game engine running on it. That's interesting. That's how we set up a lot of the logic, the game logic in Blender. The Blender at first is intended to be artist friendly. You can do a lot of coding for the game as well, but you don't have to. You can just connect bricks and components. And she's laughing at something.
It's not artist friendly, it's the worst.
Tech is savvy artists friendly. Okay, we're not talking about Blender as a whole. You can't compare it to SketchUp. I love SketchUp. I'm talking about the Blender game engine. Comparing to taking a game engine and code a lot of scripts, we see a lot of people being very fan of the so-called logic bricks. But of course it's horrible. Okay, let me just show the video and move on to show something else. So this is actually a recording of the event. Hello. It must be key to see in full screen. There you go. So this is the computer that's running. This is the output we see in the computer. So it's an accurate Tumblr panorama. It's funny, we are trying to record in the iPhone. It didn't work. So this video never actually had an audio on it. And here we are being able to, the idea was to be like a VJ tool. So even though a lot of the events they had to be driven by the particles, we wanted to have some artistic control over it without interfering in the event. So we could change colors, we could have this rainbow clean up the screen, could change gamma, saturation, shift the whole hue values. So doesn't get tired of repeating these. Again, this real time. If something were not working, you'd be really ashamed. But actually it worked pretty well. So the whole thing synced from the central computer. It was a fun project. And I was saying that Blender game engine is not also known as artist friendly. It's also known to be very quick for prototyping. So even though maybe you're a fan of the Unity or Unreal or your own engine, but I see a few studios using the Blender game engine to pre-block your stage not only using Blender for the assets, but also have the game engine to navigate and see where you can add more details. How is your animation like to play in the game before you go, all the way to your game. You can even do that to pitch the game to the producer. So you build this sandbox in the Blender game engine, and later on, if you have money, you just go for a more robust game engine. I'm saying this because for this project, we actually built this up in, was like 7 days prior to the event, and actually including doing part of the code to render in the DOM. I'm actually done showing my projects. I'm actually going to show now what people have been doing in the Blender game engine. So this is this is a collection of 10 projects. They're not recent. They're all from 2010 talk. And actually, I'm writing a book with Mike Penn, the other artist I work with, on the Blender game engine. So this is actually part of the case studies. So it's a sneak peek here. If anyone wants the book is for pre-sale on Amazon. You can go there, Mastering Game Engine. It's easy to find. Anyways, this is a project made. Okay, it's a copycat of Mario Galaxy, but still, it's a work from a Spanish artist. He's a bartender, and his dream is to work with animation and gaming. And thanks to this open tool, he was able, on his spare time, to develop his artistic skills. This game is beautiful. Okay, Mario is a beautiful game. Maybe it's always hard to tell what's the creative input on it, but it's technically very well accomplished, very well resolved. I was telling you about how the Blender game engine is nice for non-programmers. So this work here is from Vitor Balbio. He's a Brazilian. He's actually the person I was working with on that art gallery project. So he built this whole game for a Blender contest. People are putting together online participations without a single line of code. So this is a physics-based game. You can jump to a platform, you can solve some puzzles without a single line of actually code, only connecting bricks and all that. Even though can that compete with Xbox Live game? I don't know. But it's really nice as an artist for him to be able to develop in a platform that's easy, that's very accessible. But this is a more conceptual game. It's not finished. This from Martin and other artists in Europe.
Are there like good tutorials for kind of building these kind of games without like doing any coding?
This good what? Sorry.
I mean, are there like good tutorials online to kind of do stuff just by connecting?
Yes, there. Yes. I hate to be selling stuff here, but my book also helps to cover a lot of bricks. But you can also find a book called The Game Kit 2nd Edition. This game is now free on the Blender wiki page, the one that it was showing. It was made in 2000. The 2nd edition was finished in 2008, I believe. Together with the Yo Frankie game, is one of the open projects made at the Blender Foundation, and it's very nice. It's tutorial based, so every chapter teaches you something. My book's actually a bit more different approach, but whatever material you can get your hands on, just go for it.
So what's it called?
It's called Game Kit 2nd Edition. This is a nice project. Does anyone here know about the Global Game Jam? Anyone? So the Global Game Jam is a global event that happens simultaneously in different parts of the globe. This is the team in Australia. They're actually building, so we actually have 48 hours to get a concept of the game that is it's the same for everyone, the team, and we need to build up a game. So this is the second year they participated. Oh no, this was the first one. This year was the second one. And they just built a survival game on a frog. The frog needs to jump with his tongue, go climbing up. It's actually a fun game. Well, this is just to show variety. This is actually the opposite of a logic brick game. This was all done with Python. The whole set changes. It's very advanced coding. It's a nice game. Game concept. Again, you can take these and later on develop a different platform. This is a fun game out of Sintel. Sintel, I don't know if you know, he showed in one of his lives. It's one of these open movies made by Blender. Can I show the movie videos? So the Blender Foundation tried to get together a few artists and developers to work in a few open projects from time to time to try to create a pipeline that is sure to attend a studio demand. So this is a group of enthusiasts. They like the assets of the game, the movie, and they said, let's make a game out of it. So it's just nice work. I really like this project. If anyone here has iPhone, you can go download this game. It's called I think it's Cubic World. It's a team in Belgium. It's actually the lead artist is a 15 years old guy that his father is actually a Blender developer, so it helps. But he built this game for a contest. They liked the concept and they created their own engine to deploy this for iOS platform. So the Blender game engine cannot deploy for iOS platform, but you can go as far as having a very nice working prototype, sell this idea, and then later you can just go for a commercial venture. This is a completely different project. This is an educational project on recycling. It's from Diego Rangel, fellow Brazilian artist. The idea was I think he built that for one public government institution to teach people how to recycle. In Brazil, we have different colors for the recycle bins. You need to be able to sort the garbage accordingly, so you could rotate the garbage bins and collect the garbage. For kids, mainly for kids, but work nice. This is a work by Francisco Ortiz, Yorick van Havre in Naira, for her last name. They are a team of Brazilians, Yorick is Belgian. They pretty much built a few of World Cup stadiums, so you could go to this exhibition. We have this computer station, and you could navigate to the station, get more information, and learn from that. And finally, this is so I was talking about my work at British Columbia. So this is a real-time visualization built on top of the Blender game engine with Mike Penn and I. And the idea here was to show scientific data in an immersive way. So the population of the fish you see here, it's coming from this, they call EcoPath. It's a software that's been developed for 25 years already on modeling of ecosystem and fish dynamic, blah, blah, blah. It's great, but it results in numbers, charts, tables. It's really boring. So we're trying to use a real-time game engine, we call it the Blender game engine, to interactively show the results. So you can play with the input of the model, the scientific model, not 3D model, and then you see in real time what's the change in the population. And actually, this is do people know caves? We have these 3 walls or 4 walls. You put your 3D glass inside. So this is a team in Spain. Started this project called Blender Cave. If you're into cave, you can find it. There's a team in France now that is catching up on that and extending their project further. They're pretty much using the Blender game engine to project in this non-traditional environment. So again, because it's open, it's so easy to just go for your crazy ideas and make sure they work. And I think that's all about the Blender game engine. Just showcase the applications and all that. Victor?
Come back. You have more things to tell, huh? No? I don't know. No? So open for questions. Okay.
Yeah, we're open for questions and answers. Please. Yeah.
I heard there was a Google Summer of code for porting over to Android for the game. Has there been any development on that recently?
Yeah, so the question, because the camera doesn't catch your but is regarding the Android Google Summer of Code deployment option for the Blender game engine. So the Google Summer of Code, for who doesn't know, is a project that every year the Google tries to sponsor open source projects to help push their developments into bringing new developers, not actually to bring new features. That's just a nice side effect. And this year we had a project from this Chinese developer, Alex Ku, on deploying, on taking the Blender game engine and Blender and make it run in a tablet. It's kind of on hold right now because the student, after the summer, he went back to his school. I have it working on my cell phone if you want to see it. The Blender, I don't think I have the Blender game engine option, but this is something that's in the near future. Tom Rosendahl himself, he was the one mentoring this student, and if this student doesn't have time, Tom said that he might be able to take on this for himself. So it's something to expect in the near future. Any more questions on the Blender, on the animation part? I don't know, any curiosity, the game engine?
Okay, for those who ask good quality questions.
For those who ask good quality questions, you're gonna get a DVD. Oh wow! That's not how you actually promote a nice interaction with the audience. So let's go ask Christian. You said a few people here have opened Blender. Does anyone here work with Blender? Right. Nice. What do you work with Blender?
I can show you some stuff
Please,
afterwards.
bring it on. Do you have it on a pen drive?
It's actually an interactive tablet that we work on.
Nice. How can, I don't know if it's a tablet, I don't know how I can show.
Yeah, it's a tablet. I can show afterwards.
Absolutely, I can show. You work with?
Yeah, I'm doing content.
Come again?
I'm creating content on it.
For another game engine, another render engine, for Blender itself?
For games.
Okay. And have you used another platform before? Have you used Maya or Max or XSI?
Yes.
How do you like them comparing? Honestly, come on, you don't need to be fair with Blender. How long did it take for you to learn to do exactly the same thing you could do before?
Oh, it's a bit unfair to compare because I learned Blender for a longer time. The reason why I use Blender is more because it's free.
Good. Yeah, that's
And it's better.
It's better. There you go.
I used the Blender compositor and video stuff to do some educational videos for a company in Colorado.
Did you use another tool before, or why did you decide to use Blender?
Back when I was in college, I learned how to use Final Cut Pro and like Premiere and that sort of thing. But I used Blender for the same reason, because it was free, and in the interim I've moved to using Linux full time, so it's pretty much the only thing I could do for that.
That's something interesting, that Blender is free, yes, but whenever you have a small studio, a medium studio, or even a large one, Blender is not free anymore. It's free, but you're going to have a lot of hidden costs on maintaining your pipeline, on migrating it, on reporting bugs, maybe on fixing the bugs yourself. So it's free, but you need to think that people are choosing Blender not because of the license costs only. It's also because in the end of the day, it's cost effective, even though we have a lot of hustle. I can say on the university, actually I only got the job in the university because of new Blender, and they're building up a framework on top of Blender. And licensing is not a big problem there. They have money. It's really one thing, they're concerned about making sure all the content is open for the future, because if you're creating research, you want to be able to make sure you can resume work later on. And also because it's paid off. It's great after you get into the tool, to develop, to work with it. I don't know, for us was, so honestly, it can be a better tool, as you were saying, not only because it's free.
With regard to the community, Tom, the Singapore community is like really simple. That the courses that you have is really simple. Or you have collaboration with really simple. Because on the global front, how dynamic is the community, and whether your collaboration with like the mentioning of Nottingham Trent University, whether the universities that the RI and the others that you are affiliated or collaborated with. And do you have the kind of R&D collaboration within the community and competition and things like that?
Well, if I understood you correctly, you're asking whether we have, or do we know of any other universities that actually also.
My question is very much the community metric that you have.
Mm-hmm.
That within, it is expanding. How large and
how large and how big is it? Yeah. Well. How do I say this? Most of the Blender communities are actually very organic. Many people actually just, they like Blender a lot, so they started a group and slowly expand and advocate from there. Many times we don't really, how do you say, it's so organic and independent that nobody really keep track of it. So I mean, if you go to like BlenderNations.com, whereby most of the time you'll see news release of there is a certain Blender user group having a meeting somewhere. You can get a sense of how big the community is, but I do know that they don't always broadcast every single Blender user group meeting. Like, for example, I know there's a very small group in Philippines as well. China is really getting big. I bet most likely it's because they have a bigger population there as well. And this is the Minneapolis Blender user group meeting. For the Singapore meeting as well, most of the time, even though I post it up in Blender Nation, they don't really exactly broadcast it out. So most of the time I start building, what I did was I built a mailing list so that I can have people join me and broadcast, if there's a meeting or there's a meetup or things like Siggraph that will be here. China, I think, does it a little bit differently.
Yeah, sure. So in Brazil, I'm not sure saw my T-shirt. This is the 6th edition of our national Blender conference in Brazil. So we started very small, but this year was a 4 days event. We had international speakers. We had Sebastian Konigan, the one that did the tracking DVD training material. Hassan Cordali, the director of the first open movie project, The Elephant Dreams. We had Roberto Roque, the Spanish artist. They flew me over as well. But it really takes time and takes some. You need to give room for this organicity of the community. In our case, we have this national event once a year. We have a very strong mailing list, which with developers and pro users, academics that are using Blender or enthusiasts that taking that seriously, because no one really liked the forums. We have a huge forum in Brazil, the blender.com.br. But at some point, I don't think it's the best place to gather. So I think the key is to try to solve for your local culture how to address the communication problem, how to gather people. And in our case, we're even building up an association right now. We don't pretend to be the association in Brazil, but an association of people with similar interest that it is to help to spread the open source word out there and to help building course material, so with teaching material, and also to help the event. So it's really, there's a few references in the Word Connect that you can be inspired from. More questions? Do you have time for questions? She knows. Yeah.
How about the queuing system for rendering?
The what? Sorry, the
queuing system.
Queuing system.
Coexistence
Yeah.
of Blender coexist with.
For render.
Asking about a batch rendering pipeline, so like a render farm.
Yeah.
Oh, for render farm?
Yeah.
Okay, batch rendering.
But which engine is in the end? Cycles itself, or Blender render engine, or another, such as V-Ray or Octane? As far as render farm works, that's pretty. There are a few render farms. There are commercial render farms working right now for Blender. There are also community render farms working for Blender. We have Blender itself has an add-on. Add-on is like plugin to help you to have your own render farm to quickly set it up. But that's thinking using Blender also as a render engine. I don't know if that was your question though. What do you mean by coexistence?
Actually, I have a render farm
Okay.
based on Maya.
Okay.
Yeah, and I use Cube.
Oh, you use
Because
Cube.
I provide cloud-based service for a lot of users, maybe from the industry or from the university. But now I have a user told me they want to use the render. So
Okay, I can take it. Okay. In my experience in implementing stuff like Dr. Q, Master Rush, even write my own rendering engines. A lot of times, what happens is that most commercial software actually do allow you to write your own scripts to deploy, the whatever rendering engines that you want. So it's really up to you're using Cube definitely, so they ought to have some form of a custom script setup that you can use, because Blender itself, I actually can deploy it just by simply using Secure Shell SSH, write a bash script out and let it render. It has parameters out there for you to do rendering for sure, and the control actually is also pretty nice. I won't say it's very deep, but it's good enough for a lot of general purpose rendering usage. Even even to yeah, I mean, rendering for layers is almost automatic. It's just like a checkbox within the render scene file itself.
The only thing that Blender does not support for render farm is a real cluster support. So you still need to have one instance of Blender running per node. But I don't really know how does Maya or Max do. But that's the only downside, let's say, nowadays that I see. So you still need to be able to have to control your own instance of the nodes and who is running what. You can't just say render in my render farm and do that if it's a cluster. You know.
Does that answer your question?
I mean, if you need more information, you can come talk to both of us.
More questions?
More questions? Any good source of Blender models? Because a lot of what we do is time restricted, and if we can save any time and not having to develop material.
And there is blend swap.
So the question is about how to get these pre-made materials and objects to use. So there's this community-based website called Blend Swap. It's really good. You can download up to 100 megabytes per day or week, I don't know, for a free subscription or more. But the nice thing is, so I was yesterday, I don't know if people watched the pre-visualization course. One of the things I like asking the speaker is how do you do with other tools? Do you use only Maya? Do you have used SketchUp? And he said they use a lot of the Google SketchUp warehouse. You might know this website. And any file, if you have SketchUp, you export for Collada, you can just load it up in Blender and change the materials. A lot of people actually use a Blender only as a renderer. They model everything in SketchUp and just bring it to Blender. So, sure, we can have, and also a lot of all the open movies, all the matte paintings, all the textures, all the models, they're open, they're free to use. Some people actually use like the Big Bang in background I see in a commercial ad in the TV because it's free to use. So this also helps as an asset. Although I would say the DVDs are probably more as a learning material because it's so specific to a demand, but I don't know. But the blend swap is definitely the big one nowadays. And they have it's very nice with things like cycles, architecture. They have very nice models. Oh. This is only for architecture, but a small sample. There's like a whole scene linked with cycles if you want to do architecture rendering. But you can also import OBJ. OBJ in Blender is really good. Blender has one of the best OBJ importers in the industry. OBJ is really, because actually, even though the file is not well written, Blender finds a way to import it. Blender also supports FBX. So the whole Unity 3D pipeline input, no output, just the input, comes actually from FBX conversion. So they actually Unity helped to sponsor the FBX development. Collada is working pretty well for SketchUp. And yeah, what else do we need?
Is there an integration with Alembic yet for Blender?
Integration with Alembic, not yet. Have been there talks, but that's as speculative as it gets. People would be interested in doing it. Alembic, PTEX, we actually have a branch for it. Do you know PTEX? I never used. Maybe because I work more with games nowadays, so I don't really need it. But you still need a UV wrapping, so what's the point of? But there are people working on it.
But because like the industry standard is kind of changing, like people are willing to switch to PTEX for texturing and Alembic for caching.
But that's something nice along these lines. Do you know OSL, Open Change Language? Open Change, or there's a website like only for that. So Blender try whenever possible to integrate open standards into its built-in tools. So the most recent of these additions is the OSL. OSL is the open shading language developed by Sony Works, and they made the first movie was, I forgot the first one. I think it was Smurfs. Yeah, they rendered Smurfs with OSL. They rendered Spider-Man. They rendered Men in Black 3. They recently made the Hotel Transylvania, a very funny movie, but it was all rendered in OSL. So it can be used for realistic renders or for more artistic renders. and Blender is, the first open tool to support it. The open shading language pretty much you can build your material by writing code, and that's actually sounds I don't want to write code, but someone in your team is gonna write the code and you're just gonna use it. It's very flexible. This is actually a website that was released this week. It's only for open shading language. It's actually built together by the Thomas Dinto, is a Blender developer. I don't know if they I haven't visited the website, so I don't know if there's images here, but that's an example of the shader. And this is for wireframe, for example. Just an example of how open technology is being integrated with Blender. That's why you have Collada support. That's the 3D warehouse. More questions?
There isn't a lot of, for a presentation, I don't really see like rigging from using Blender. So how's rigging like in Blender?
It's for the animations. For the animations, people use rigging. You don't have Mancandi here, do you? Mancandi.
Oh, Mancandi.
Mancandi. So I don't do rigging a lot myself, so I shouldn't be the one talking it. But there's even a DVD only on rigging for Blender. I think it's pretty good. I haven't seen one of humane rigging.
There's actually a DVD training called Humane Rigging. One I kind of opted that out to show it because the two guys that's doing the teasers is just kind of really teasing you. But that aside, actually, rigging in Blender actually is quite nice to work with, especially ever since they introduced back in what's the thing that I forget the rigging term for it.
Rigify.
Rigify is one of the nice tools to use whereby auto rig stuff for you when you actually point things out.
Oh, like it's temperature based.
There's another one which is temperature based skinning. I can't remember the exact term for it because Blender originally itself uses a coordinate system that is like, how do you say, a bit more challenging for riggers to understand fully how it works versus those that Maya and the rest of the world uses. But the problem with the way that the Maya 3D Max coordinate system is that it usually have a problem with gimbal lock. So the Blender system actually avoided the gimbal lock. Yeah, so you kind of got a balance between ease of use versus stuff. So for Sintel, actually, they reintroduces the one with the gimbal lock issues back in.
Yeah, most of the things you can do with other rigging tools you can do in Blender. You can see this is that it's easier DVD, so it's rendered, but simulating the bone controls we have in Blender. You can have controller bones, constraints and bones. You can FK, IK. What else do you need? You can do some like scratching for cartoons.
Other things like equivalent to PSD, post-based deformers in Blender.
PSD?
Yeah.
You mean the Photoshop?
No, the post-based deformer, like
I don't know.
used for fixing part deformation issues.
Post-based deformer.
Is that like equivalent to
Deformer.
Post-based deform. I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't think we have for rigging.
I know there's a mesh deform, which allows for more smooth.
Is on movie making pipeline, so they go through this whole process of how to make a kind of battleship movie. They cover different aspects of it, and there's the one from Jonathan Williamson that's only on character modeling. I don't even think he covers animation, does he? Okay, so he might go to rigs. And he's the one running the Blender Cookies, the website he started. His specialty is on topology and modeling. That's why I think that the book probably is more focused on the modeling.
Yes.
But it might show some rigging, maybe for a game even. So it's also different. If you're doing rigging for games or for movies, there's difference, but you get it working.
I mean, even rigging for different objects, requires different kind of setup.
But just stand for if you know rigging in Maya, you can pick it up on Blender. As Maya, Blender also allows Because using Python for, as they have the PyML in Maya, you can use the Python to do drivers and more complex constraints. Bassan, the one that made this DVD and directed Elephant Dreams, he has an open movie project now called Tube, T-U-B-E. You can go to their website. One of the things they develop is a auto-walking rigging. It's a rigging system that you can set up and it automatically walks and change the legs. And they had this for women, for humans, but also for cockroaches and animals. That's cool.
Maybe you guys can show the Blender news, Blender Nation news. Recently, Blender Cookie is releasing. It's going to release the new rigging.
Maybe you can show the Blender. I'm not here to I can show that. Okay. Blender Nation thing on the Blender Cookie.
You go back to one more page, the previous page.
Okay. Oh, that's your tutorial.
Yeah, that's my tutorial.
Any other questions in the meantime?
If I use, because I first time know about the Blender, if I use this Blender to model the character, I'll have the meshes. So can I export the meshes into data?
Into where?
Into to have the data for the coordinated points. So
Yes. You can export in a format that uses that in a text format, such as OBJ or Collada or or so many others. And you can even in Blender, just from Python, just print out all the coordinates of the. If you're more into not the artist part of it, more the science. The friend with the cap.
Speaking of that open shading language, I'm wondering which render engines inside Blender is actually using that. Another question would be that, do you know, is there any other alternative render engine inside Blender? You regard that as, say, production proven, or you can actually rely on that to do serious work?
Serious work is a tricky word.
Sorry, I'm just refer that as
no.
Like you can use that to deal with very dense, heavy things, or it's open enough for you to do a lot of. It's more like you can hacking and do a lot of dirty stuff that help you to get the work done.
So, just to show this, let's go to the vray.com/ V-Ray for Blender. So, first answer the first part of your question. The open shading language is integrated with the Cycles engine in Blender. Cycles is a new render engine in Blender that's based on the path tracing algorithm. So the whole BRDF from the class implementation, BRDF, and that's what LuxRender even is. But the thing, the only limitations of the open shading language is built up to be based on the physics-based lighting, but only runs on CPU. So if you're spoiled by all these GPU goodies and have a nice NVIDIA, you can't benefit from it if you go to the open shading language. And there are questions about how well you can integrate with other engines. So one of the goals of having Cycles in Blender is not only to provide a nice open render engine for realistic rendering, but also to create use this as a proof of concept on how we can tie up different engines in Blender seamlessly. So Cycles is actually almost external to Blender, even though it's shipped with Blender. And while Brecht was developing Cycles, he was also making sure the API for other engines to plug in Blender were very robust. So here in the V-Ray website officially, they're like showcasing the work of Bertrand Benoit, a great artist, but rendered from Blender to V-Ray. You can change the V-Ray options inside the Blender, the Blender panels, press render that goes to V-Ray. LuxRender is I don't know if it's going to fit in our robust serious engine category, but it's also very well integrated. People use for architecture sometimes, but V-Ray is the tool people use for architecture most of the time. And again, if you can use open shading language in Blender, and also you can render Spider-Man, because you still need to build all the shaders to get there. But you have the same back end running there, so the possibilities are there. But yes, as a shortcoming, if you need to use Octane, if you need to use V-Ray, if if you need to use, maybe even mental array, I don't know if you can, but you can work with Blender.
I don't know if you can, but I mean, to my extent of knowledge, OpenCV language is more like written for path tracer stuff, right?
Yes, for path tracer. Cycle is a path tracer. That's why I thought I mentioned that, sorry. So Blender came from a linear tracer to a semi-ray tracer, and now Blender still has this semi-ray tracer into it. It's not a full ray tracer, and now we finally have a path tracer. And with the path tracer, we have things such as fish islands in Blender that just so beautiful, works so nicely. We have panorama rendering. So even the Blender, the DOM community is like the strong, it's a niche, but still, people working for DOM Planetarians, they're very thrilled to have an open tool to, out of the box, press one button, and you have this, you know, the fisheye thing. More questions? I can show you some fisheye, yes.
Do you know the progress of particle simulation system? Because lately I'm doing a ground simulation, and the best I get was the boy particle, which is not as smart as other engines.
Yeah, there's been work on this, but you shouldn't. There's a classic talk on the open source that you shouldn't praise something that's not in trunk yet. Trunk is the main repository of the code. So right now, what we have is what we have. It's not great compared to other things. It's very limited in terms of boy simulation. But I saw people. Sorry, I want to show the fisheye. There's people implemented their own particle system with Python even on top of Blender. But it's hard. You can't really compare it. There's been working on this. There's a developer working only on node-based particle integration. It's nice. I mean, I showed some of the fish work I've done. This one, yes, maybe here. All the flock here is using voids in Blender. It's nice, but I know it still does not up to pair to other things. That's an example of the fisheye. Here, fisheye rendering. So inside Blender, just set the camera to be actually solid. And that's what comes for free when you have a path tracing in it. So it's really nice that we now have this kind of functionalities in Blender. More questions? We have hello? How much time do you have? 5 more minutes, maybe one final question to, I don't know, any question? I think we can also, okay.
Do you normally have yearly or monthly or weekly common team that you work on? And for example, flagship project that you have from time to time?
Flex per hour.
You know, something that innovative, something that is very on-demand kind of thing, and global appeal. So I don't know. Do you have, you know, why, for example, like your contractors are working on that kind of scheme. Yours is a free flow, not having the kind of a universal key. So do you have a universal key that you work on?
Oh, you're the development team of Blender.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe I'm a bit. So I can speak for myself. I'm a Blender developer. I do that partially in my work time because at the university we need some features in Blender. Things such as fisheye is something I implemented because I wanted. I kind of needed for the work we're doing, but it's also I justified that into the thing. But there's no money coming from me specifically for development of Blender right now. I did write some freelances on making features. That's the reality of a few other developers. So just to give you an idea, we have right now 3 almost full-time developers paid with the Blender Foundation to work only on Blender development, including bug fixing, including documentation, and new features from time to time. We have a fund, a user fund, and only towards new features. So the money that comes from this fund cannot be used for bug fixing purely. It needs to be used for nice features. So for example, the new composting system in Blender, it's all threadable now. It's so much faster. It was possible partially due to the money that came from it. The particle system is also coming as part of this funding, but it's still different from, the number of developers that Autodesk can afford to have it. So a way we see this to make it sustainable is to have studios, medium studios, let's say a small one has 6 people, 8 people, and inside the team one person that can also help the team with developing Blender for the team needs and bring that back to the main Blender trunk. So if you have these local groups, and we had an example of this in Argentina. There's a studio called Liquadora Studio. You might have heard the work on Tuníferos. Liquadora Studio, you see. And they had their team of 4 people, and one of them is a developer. His time is not only on coding Blender, but he does all the vendor farm management, a lot of scripting, a lot of any technical things, and Blender development. For example, Diego Borghetti is his name. He implemented the new font system in Blender. So I think the way I see it, more than relying on having a lot of funding in this central structure, I'll be more interested on see how this new market, this new economy can absorb this workforce where you get a free production pipeline, but you give it back a little bit in your time. You have budget for that. So whenever I do a work with a freelancer, to the art gallery, for example, I always would allocate some budget to do Blender bug fixing and small developments because I know what I will need myself, and I know that's a fair game for everyone to play.
Just add on a little bit to what he says. Literally all open source projects, it's there actually because there's an itch to scratch. So someone has an itch to scratch, and someone contributed the code, and they contributed back to what we call upstream. So the upstream guy says, "Oh, this is cool," so they integrate it in. So we don't really sort of compete with the proprietary software guys, because for us it's more like we have a problem, a real problem to solve, and we are there to solve it. So it's up to each individual to contribute code back to upstream to say, hey, this thing needs fixing. Oh, hey, you know what? Right now we need this feature. Okay, so we contribute the code back in. That's how we actually build stuff that is really neat and required, not something like yeah, it's nice to sell.
Now the DVD quiz. You promised that, you do that.
Okay.
Can I have one question?
Yep.
Coding for composting, Blender can use for composting, right?
Yes.
So it's node based or like?
It's not based.
Node
based. Yeah.
And do you have any samples of like how they composting?
Actually, right now I can't just pull out something with me right here, but
here?
Yeah. Do you have compositing notes?
Of course I have composting notes. Do you want inside Blender or outside?
You just need an example.
Oh, I'm gonna show here as a. Let me show how here. I picked one already. This is an example of composting nodes in Blender. This is actually, yeah, that's pretty much how it works. This is to make this image here. So we pretty much work with layers as anything else and just compose the background. It's a node-based system like many other systems. Yeah, I don't have the real file here, but I have in the video. This actually it's a nice video if you're interested in development or how things work behind the curtains. It's a video on how we created a new feature for the Blender composite system. So I was in the Brazilian conference. I was with other artists, and they said, "Oh, I need this. Oh, I also need this." So I said, "Oh, let's make a node for this," and this is a fun video explaining that. Answered? Is it? Yeah. So there's a quiz. We have a few DVDs. Once again, if you know if you get the DVD, you also feel free to put the content online later on. So there's actually a DVD for rigging. I said that I showed the old rigging DVD, but that's a new one called Human Rigging. Human Rigging. Got the name. And we have a few of them. And then Victor's gonna make questions.
Oh, quiz! Wow. Okay. Let's hope that for those who haven't asked any questions, I'm going to keep it real simple. Okay, first thing first.